Let's have some fun and dig into the culture war, shall we? Advocacy groups. Leftward mission creep is creeping up on free speech. Human rights nightmare Donald Trump. Hello and welcome to the Tea Party Hardy channel, where the party is just getting started. Current events looked at through a skeptical eye using science, history, and sometimes humor to explore the events of the day. Let's get down to business. Well, this article takes a look at, last year Amnesty International published an extensive 8-part report, Toxic Twitter, a Toxic Plan for Women. According to the report, female journalists, politicians, blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on to say that ACLU and other groups of that nature, including the ACLU and PEN America, are backing away from the issue of free speech. Joy. And it talks about how millennials are the main driving force inside of these organizations, and they were raised and indoctrinated, taught in school that free speech is not important, because if it's hate speech, you shouldn't be allowed to say it. Well, guess what? They've grown up, they're taking over, and they are taking away free speech, and they are proud of it. So what exactly does that look like if we're not talking about the nonprofit organizations? It kind of looks like this. Camille Paglia can't say that. Art students are trying to get the social critic fired from a job she's held for 3 decades. So for 30 years, she's been preaching her brand of feminism, which used to be mainstream, but, streams don't stay main for very long anymore, especially on the left. It's kind of the funny thing about conservatism, is in conservatism, one of the stalwarts is that you rely on the foundations of the past to move forward, whereas the left is like, any way the wind blows. Yep. So they're coming after her, giving her a really hard time. You could just put that in the category of the left eating the left. And what else? We should also be careful to consider, listen to Joe DeVineva, and in the case of the Obama anti-Trump brigade, be very afraid. Now, this is from the American Spectator. If you know the American Spectator, it's from the right. This is the Atlantic. It's definitely from the left. And if you like long-winded, you will love Atlantic. Oy vey. Let's see, what do we have? This is Real Clear Politics, Real Clear Investigations. So as you can see, a little bit of a broad source. This is just talking about the coup in America and how we've talked about it here before, that if you're going to have a coup and you're going to fail, you're supposed to get your head cut off. That's traditionally the way they do it. And if you don't, then you get what we've got with Bill Barr, where he went before the Senate yesterday, and they were like, still trying to do the coup. And then they wanted him to go in front of the House today so they could go and continue the coup. And he said, yeah, I'm good. No. So if you don't cut off their heads, then you land up with them continuing the coup. In Venezuela, it has big old Jeep cars running over human beings. In America, it has the lefties in Congress going, it's still all a coup. Oh. Now, if you're still here, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are righty, prepare to have the choir preached at. If you are lefty, you will not stay, because, unfortunately, we've come to the point where people who absorb information from the other side, not including one of our favorite subscribers, you know who I'm talking to, they will tune out the other side. And that's just a shame, because as you can see, I look at several different examples because I want a broader understanding, because I don't think I've mentioned this before, but I want to. I attack the left on a regular basis, and I'm attack the right on a few occasions. But I want you to understand this. The reason I go after the left far more than I do on the right is because, though you wouldn't know it by the way the institutions are set up in America, you would think, looking at the institutions of America, that the Republicans have the presidency and they have the Senate. But if you look at the reality on the ground, the Democrats have the power. The left has the power. Now, why is that? That's because outside of Donald Trump, they just don't stand up. They don't have spines. And that is the Achilles heel that the left has always succeeded well, I shouldn't say always, since the 1960s, succeeded in using against the Republicans to great effect. They own one branch of Congress right now, the House. And you would swear Nancy Pelosi is the president more occasions than not. To be sure, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she thinks she's the president. Anyway, back to Target here. So what I wanted to say was this, and I hope to mention it again in other videos coming up. Power corrupts, and our absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if the right were to take over and actually act like it, I would switch just as quick to go against them, because my issue isn't with the right or the left. My issue is with how are you using power, and are you using it to help the people or to control the people? Because as it stands right now, the right is supposed to be in charge of freeing up the people from government regulations that just constantly get in their way. In French, they say "les affaires." In English, we say "get out of my face." And it is the left that is, watch the presidential campaigns. All they talk about is ways to manipulate you, ways to control you. And Joe Biden with his funny, "Make America Moral Again." That's funny in the reasons we're about to cover right now, but it's also funny because that spells mama. Mama. So for all these years that the right has been saying, oh, you lefties just want cradle to the grave. You just want a big old mommy to take care of you. Well, Joe Biden's campaign slogan, "Make America Moral Again." Mama. Very revealing. Okay. So anyways, once again, if you're still here, cool. I am going to beat this article to death. So if you want to read it on your own, you can. Otherwise, I'm going to do it now, and then I'm going to wrap up. Democrats lie like the devil, and the media lets them get away with it. Again, I'm preaching to the choir here, because lefties have already closed the door. If you're a lefty and you haven't closed the door, are you sure you're a lefty? Tim Pool thinks he's a lefty. I don't think he's a lefty. As Ronald Reagan said, I didn't leave the left left me. As Roseanne said, I didn't leave the left left me. If you stay with this, you might be having to look in the mirror and go, oh, I'm not so sure I'm on the left anymore. You want to talk about lying in politics? Fine, let's talk about it. Democrats lie all the time. The Republican tax cuts didn't cut taxes. We have direct evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. You can keep your doctor. It's easier to get a Glock than a library book. Mitt Romney murdered a lady. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Monica Lewinsky. He really did do it that way. Like, in case you were curious which one he was referring to. Democrats lie all the time, aided by a media complex that laps it up and uncritically regurgitates it. Former Vice President Joe Biden launched his presidential campaign by saying Democrats are waging a battle for the soul of this nation. How can his party win that argument when his own character is stained by lie after shameless lie? Perhaps the most egregious policy canard floated by Democrats during the Donald Trump presidency has to do with the Republican tax cuts. Well, I don't agree, but I'll puppet what he's saying here. According to NBC Wall Street Journal poll, just 17% of Americans believed that their taxes went down. What's the truth? Well, let's ask the New York Times, which, after printing lie after lie regarding the tax cut, finally reported in April, tax season, if you're an American taxpayer, you probably got a tax cut last year, and there's a good chance you don't believe it. Gee whiz. If only there were an industry with the resources and responsibility to have told people the truth about it. And this time, the truth about it all the time. Better late than never, I guess. So the New York Times continued. To a large degree, the gap between perception and reality on the tax cuts appears to flow from a sustained and misleading effort by liberal opponents of the law to brand it as a broad middle-class tax increase. The unnecessary qualifier appears, notwithstanding. The Times spoke of the devil, and the old appear and did... Oh, wow. I should be really wearing glasses when I do this in the future. And the Times spoke of the devil, and he did appear. Democrats lied. The media helped them, and the people bought it. When Trump lies, we suffer endless analysis about whether Republicans will survive, whether the Republic will survive. When Democrats lie, we get nothing until the narrative is baked beyond repair. And he just gives example after example after example, because there are so many to choose from, where lefties lie. I've got a song that I wrote yesterday, the lyrics for, and the basic melody, and it's called, well, you'll have to wait and see. Eventually I'll get it done and then I'll put it on here. It's just tricky because you guys all know I am back to work, so sneaking any of these in is really hard. So there's my preaching to the choir. Lefties lie and they get away with it. Righties lie and they get tarred and feather. Is it fair? No. Is it right? No. Why does it happen? Because outside of Donald Trump, the right is a bunch of spineless jellyfish. You elect them to do one thing, and then they say they're going to do it, and then what? I don't know. Lefties, I don't know. Do they do what they promise? I don't know. I try and ignore them as much as I can, because all they want to do is just do terrible things to my wallet, which is already really shallow. Enough is enough. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed the content, and if you did, feel free to like, subscribe, come on back anytime. You're always welcome here as part of the family, and we'll see you in the future.